Hey you guys, Jessie here, and welcome back to part 3 of this 4-part series, How to Keep Your Audience Engaged During a Live Online Presentation. Just to recap, in part 1 of the series, we covered the 9 elements needed to deliver an artful invite for your online presentation or webinar. In part 2 of the series, we examined the 3-act sequence of an attention-grabbing intro for your presentation. And today, in part 3 of the series, we're going to discuss how to structure the narrative of the body of your presentation so that you can keep your audience engaged. And by the way, if you haven't had a chance to watch part 1 or 2 yet, just click on the links below this video and watch the parts 1 and 2, and then you can return here and watch part 3. So it's important to deliver a compelling narrative in the body of your presentation because the body serves as the lead up to your conclusion. And in the conclusion, that's where you're going to pitch your big ask, your call to action to drive traffic and sales to your online courses and information products. And we're going to cover all of that in part 4. But first, we need to talk about how to keep that audience engaged with the most valuable content of your presentation. Because remember, you want to build authority, trust, and connection with your audience. And if you can do that, then you're closer to reaching your goal of converting that audience of prospects into clients. And that conversion is only going to happen when your audience feels like they know, like, and trust you. So let's take a moment to discuss presentation narrative and narrative structure. And narrative is just a fancy word for story. And narrative structure is simply a story with a well-defined sequence. It's like a breadcrumb trail that anyone can follow to craft a story, whether that's a presentation, a novel, or a memoir. So the most engaging presenters rely on narrative structures. And notice that I said structures. That's because there isn't a one-size-fits-all narrative structure. There are many different types of narrative structures, and the trick is knowing which structure to use for any given presentation. So I've listed 2 different common structures here. One is a Freytag's pyramid, which is the classic story structure. It begins with exposition, some people say introduction, followed by rising action, climax, falling action, and then denouement. And then on the right-hand side, you see this more circular or epic narrative structure. But there are other types of plots you could weave into the narrative of a presentation. You could tell a rags to riches story, or a story of a quest, or a voyage and return story, or a story about rebirth that would inspire your audience. So just keep in mind that there are different narrative structures, and the key is knowing which one is going to best serve the purpose of your particular presentation. But today, in an effort to keep things simple, let's just focus on one particular narrative structure. And it's one that's particularly effective for business owners to use to promote products or services. And let's call this one the client as hero narrative structure. It goes something like this. So you begin by introducing a client or character, and you want to describe this person in some detail, including maybe their name, their profession, age, marital status, etc. Really give a full picture to your audience of who this person is so that they can form a connection or a bond with this character or client you're featuring in your story. And what you want to do is explain the problem that this client was facing before he or she came to you for help in your business or your online program. So let me give you an example. So let's create this fictional character named Sam. And let's say that I'm a life coach, and this was the life that Sam was dealing with before she met me and enrolled in one of my programs. So here's our introduction. So meet Sam. 2 years ago, Sam was a seemingly successful 32-year-old real estate lawyer, but the reality was that Sam was deeply unhappy and completely burnt out. We're talking about burnout like you've never seen it before. You see, Sam wasn't fulfilling her life's purpose. She had never really wanted to be a lawyer, but her parents pressured her to go to law school right after college. So with a law degree in hand, she went to work for a real estate law firm. Sam was making decent money at her firm, but she was miserable. So one day, Sam decided that she just couldn't take it anymore. She quit her job, moved out of her apartment, packed up her car, and headed east to the Georgia coast. So that was our introduction. From there, we move into that rising action portion of our story. And this is where we want to start building tension in our story. And we do that by describing some of the unsuccessful attempts that our character or client made in an effort to solve his or her problem. And we want to elaborate on the results of those failed attempts. So let's continue with Sam's story. So Sam moved into a dank basement apartment in Brunswick, Georgia. She signed up for a few continuing ed classes, hoping she would find her purpose. But 10 months after leaving her old life and job, all she had to show for her efforts was $3,000 in credit card debt and $200 measly in her savings account. She was running out of time and money, but she wasn't any closer to finding her life's purpose. Now we're into Act 3. The climax of our story. And this is the most dramatic part of our story. And this is the point in your presentation where there's going to be a sudden shift in circumstances for your character as a result of a dramatic event. And now, obviously, if you're telling the story to promote a service or product in your business, then this dramatic event should be something like the character meets you, or hears about your program, registers for your, let's say in this case, small group coaching program, signs up for your free online course, or purchases your amazing product. And something amazing is going to happen. So let's get back to our story. So one day, Sam's friend Lena called to tell Sam about an amazing online course and small group coaching program Lena had enrolled in called Your Purpose-Driven Life. Lena told Sam about how the coaching program was helping her carve out a new path for her life and work, and she urged Sam to check out the program online. Now we're entering Act 4, the resolution or new bliss of our story. So in this part of our story, our character's able to solve her problem because of the product or service you are offering. So basically here, you're going to elaborate on how the character was able to solve her problem because of your product or service, and you'll want to really spell out, or you can even list all the ways that the different features of your service or product benefited your character and helped him or her solve the problem. And your audience is going to identify with your character and her story. So the resolution of the story is going to help you build some trust, credibility, and rapport with your audience. So let's wrap up our story about Sam. So as soon as Sam got off the phone with Lena, she went to check out my Your Purpose-Driven Life online program. She registered that day, took my course, found her true calling in life, and within 2 months of completing my course, Sam founded a nonprofit called Nature Kids. Her organization helps inner-city kids across the U.S. connect with nature by protecting and beautifying urban green spaces in their own communities. So in Act 5, the final act of our narrative sequence, you're ready to conclude your presentation. And this is where you're going to pitch your offer, your product or service to your audience. Now, I'm not going to cover this here. I'm actually going to cover this in part 4 of this 4-part series. But the important thing to keep in mind here is that you will want to get your conclusion just right so that you can drive traffic and sales to your website, to your online courses, and your information products. But again, we'll cover this in the last part of our series. So let's recap. So the client is hero narrative structure goes something like this. We begin with an introduction, followed by some rising action, tension building in our story, and that is followed by a climax where we see a sudden shift in circumstances for the character of our story. Act 4 is our resolution where the client achieves some new bliss, a new state of being as a result of purchasing or experiencing our product or service, and then the story wraps up with a conclusion. So thank you so much for watching today. And if you have any questions, you can find me at info@jessiehayden.com. You can also visit my website, changemakerdesigns.com. And I hope you'll join the community of changemakers in my private Changemakers TLC Facebook group. We're a teaching and learning community for change-making course creators and change-making professionals, and we'd love to have you join us. Stay tuned, and I'll see you soon in part 4 of our series as we wrap things up. Goodbye for now.